Welcome to Setting the Stage, Episode 28, Orkish Rising Recap. In order for the podcast to continue, I really need more guests to volunteer to be on the show. So if you're interested, or if you know someone who is interested, please go to gocorral.com/SDS to learn more about how to apply to be on the show. That's GOCORRAL.com/SDS. This episode's a bit special because it's about my own campaign. It's a breakdown that I had with my players at the conclusion of the campaign. So it probably requires a bit more of an introduction than usual for you to know the basic facts that during that conversation all the other members are already aware of. So I'm going to start off by giving a little bit of an intro about what happened in my campaign and a little bit on the setting, but not very much. I'm going to try to keep this as short as I can. The campaign is called Orkish Rising. It's about orc chief that returns to the Orclands and tries to unite the orc tribes so that instead of being like all these separate little tiny tribes, they have a greater nation that they're a part of. The king or chief who becomes king is called Gregor. I want to introduce my players, so just so you can kind of get a feel for the different voices that you're going to hear here. My campaign started with 6 players. 2 of them dropped out in the process. One of them was Korjak, who was played by Ben. Ben has a lot of trouble like making time for D&D, so he ended up being more of an intermittent player, and there ended up being a lot less focus on his character throughout the campaign. John was another player who dropped out near the end, not for any out of character reason, more it's that his character died during the finale with the fight with Chief Hatud. So John also does not appear in this episode because his character was dead and he didn't show up to the final few sessions after that. He played Orok, a cleric of Mars or Ares, as my game uses the Greek gods. The other 4 players are ones that feature in this, so you'll want to learn a little bit about their names and their characters. Trajan was playing Gregor. Gregor's the king and the chief, so this had some unusual stuff for the campaign because there was a central character that everyone else was sort of orbiting around. So we will discuss that in the episode about how that changes a campaign. Here's a sample of Trajan's voice so you know who he is when he's talking.
I had a whole speech planned and thought out for I'd figured out what Gregor was going to do.
Next player we have is Avery. Avery played Hrothgar, who, unlike the other characters who all have some orc blood, Hrothgar is a dwarf who was adopted by some orcs. So he still counts as orc for the party, but and Hrothgar had a magic axe called Rumble. Rumble was actually a piece of Jormungandr and turned into Jormungandr in that final confrontation, and then turned back at the end. And here's a sample of Avery's voice.
We only saw we didn't flash back to all the battle scenes. We flashed back to all the little stuff in between.
Next we have Jamie, who plays Ulthian. Ulthian was a quarter orc, not a half orc, a quarter orc. And he came from outside of the Orclands and trying to like figure out more about his orc heritage as part of his journey. His story is that he sort of had a sun god that was possessing him, an evil sun god. We discussed that a bit in the episode. And he also had a intelligent weapon that he ended up having be a part of, sort of like working with against the evil sun god named Korm is the intelligent weapon's name. Korm has been sort of a recurring NPC within my campaigns, so it's a little bit about that in the episode. Here's a sample of Jamie's voice.
Holy shit. This is an awesome campaign.
And the final player that we want to mention is Will, who plays Dragok. Will has appeared on the show before, just like John, Will's dad. Will was in the first episode, and John was in episode 19. Will plays Dragok. Dragok is a priest, and he's often, giving some sort of prophecy, and rolling the bones is how he does prophecy by taking a bunch of knuckle bones, rolling them in, and interpreting how they land. And Dragok was the one having a conversation with Gregor right before we go into the post-campaign discussion that this episode is. And here's a sample of Will's voice.
I think there's some debate about what fascism means, but it's fundamentally a 20th century political movement.
So there's the different players, and now I'd like to give you more background on the campaign itself. The Orclands, a long time ago, were used to be part of the rest of my campaign world, Cimmeria, as a single unit called the Conclave. And the orcs were led by someone named the First Chief after they broke apart from the Conclave. The First Chief doesn't really have a name, he's just like this mythical figure. Then the orcs came back to work with the other races to fight dragons that were trying to rule everyone. During that time, the orcs were not ruled, they were more led by a orcish bard named Gorwinoa, who was played by Trajan in our last campaign, before this one. And then Gorwinoa was more leading the orcs, but she didn't really want to rule them. So after the Dragon War concluded, she kind of just left them to do their own thing, and they slowly fell apart and turned into a bunch of different tribes that weren't really ruled by anyone. Along comes Gregor, who wants to unite the tribes, and he has a strong position as chief of the Thunderhawks. But he ended up being enslaved by some humans on a hunting trip. So his attempt to unify the Orclands failed because he got enslaved and was no longer in the Orclands. So someone else came in to take over that, and that is Chief Hatud, who is the chief of the necromancer tribe called the Endless Autumn. So that sets up like the villain for the campaign was Hatud. Gregor eventually escaped slavery, returns with the sword and the skin of the first chief. So the sword and like a leather armor thing that was made from the first chief's skin. So it's all magic, but sort of weirdly crafted, but still very good artifacts that sort of anoint him as the leader of the orcs. He comes back. There's a long conflict over the campaign between Gregor and his companions, the rest of the party, and Hatud and all of his followers, and eventually Gregor wins. And the Endless Autumn are wiped out, and Gregor is now set up to be king. Obviously, uniting all the different orc tribes took some more time after that, so we did a little bit of time skip after Hatud was defeated. And 3 years later, the Orclands are unified, and Gregor is sort of officially becoming king of the Orclands. At his coronation ceremony, the crown was stolen. The crown was stolen by Loki, who was played by my dad. Gilgi showed up a few times in the campaign and was always played by my dad, who was a guest star because he used to be playing with us when we were kids for my group of friends. So we had one last adventure where he had to go get it back. He got it back, and then on the way home, the party was attacked by a giant Jormungandr. So Jormungandr was like this final challenge because Jormungandr's return and like coming to the Earth is supposed to be the signal of Ragnarok. So it was kind of like a finale to the campaign to fight this big old dragon symbol of Ragnarok. Right at the conclusion of the fight with Ragnarok is about where this conversation happens. What I'm going to play here for the podcast episode picks up after a conversation between Gregor and Dragok about fate. I also want to mention that there was a song I played as sort of a credits for the campaign that's from the animated Hobbit movie by Robert Baskin. The song is done by Glenn Yarbo. So there's a bit I play for that to have my players' reactions for that. So hopefully you find this kind of breakdown of a campaign interesting, and let's get into it.
Any complications, Isaac, as we head back to civilization?
No, that's actually pretty much it for what I have for the campaign. I didn't really have any plans for the coronation. Or actually role-playing through it. It's kind of whatever
I
you
don't
guys
think
want.
we necessarily need to, yeah.
Yeah, I was actually thinking this is a good ending point with you guys having slain Jormungandr and heading back to the coronation.
I just like the ending point of them talking about fate, like the ruler and potentially the future ruler, sort of like musing on. Yeah, it was just neat.
Yeah, no, I thought that was a good ending point. So
it was a very good conversation.
Bravo.
Bravo, indeed.
All right, I got a little song prepped.
Oh.
Even get ready to shout out what your character. When there's like in the credits, you get the slideshow of pictures of the characters in the aftermath doing funny things.
Ever on, over
Oh.
under trees, by caves where never sun has shone,
That time we played bocce ball.
by streams that never find the sea. Roads go
Wolfman and Rock are
ever
staring
on,
transfixed at Dragok faking rolling the bone.
under cloud and under star. Yet feet that wandering have gone will turn at last to home afar. Over snow by winter sown, and through the merry flowers of June, over grass and over stone, under the mountains in the moon, roads go ever, ever on, over rock and under tree, by caves where never sun
Wolfman
has
returning
shone,
home.
by
And
streams that never
realizing
find
that all of the guards that Gregor sent with him are women.
Well,
That was excellent.
Yeah, I was trying to pick between that and Conan the Barbarian song.
This was, I liked the whimsy in this. It was a nice off tone from whatever the game was, but it worked real good. We only saw we didn't flash back to all the battle scenes. We flashed back to all the little stuff in between.
Yeah.
Character moments.
Yeah.
Bravo.
holy shit. This is an awesome campaign.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, it
I had a lot of
was.
fun doing it
Fun.
too.
Yeah.
Now I can give away all the secrets.
Oh, yeah.
I thought Gorwina was going to show up at some point, and she
Me
never
too.
in a more significant way. But
Yeah, I was deeply concerned that she was on the Endless Autumn team for some reason.
She was supporting them because Gregor is fascist.
Fuck, we are the
Yeah,
bad
yeah, but
guys.
they are. He is, but like they're fucking zombie people.
That's,
Come on.
that doesn't matter to her.
Shit.
Necromancy was never something that she was established as being against, like ever within all of the stuff we were doing.
Fair enough.
I had a whole speech planned and thought out for. I'd figured out what Gregor was going to do if we ever encountered Gorwinoa, and the notion was that basically he was going to say, "Well, this is awkward. If the situation was different, obviously as the sort of main saint in the Orkish canon, things were different. He would follow her, but things aren't. And if she's around in the Orclands, she's going to gain popular support, and I can tolerate no rivals."
Well, from your description, it seems like she wanted to still be kind of lay low, but support her objectives. And an additional objective of Gorwinoa, besides like supporting freedom, is also creating good stories.
Right.
So she's tired of being the main character and is trying to support another main character. And no matter what, like having a villain is important, whether Gregor ends up being the villain in the story or Hatud. So
that was certainly that makes a lot of sense, and certainly consistent with what I envisioned. Right, you don't get to be an epic level bard without understanding meta narratives,
Right?
right?
Yeah, so she was, prodding a story into being what she wanted.
There's a chance she interacts with the comrades of the hunt that isn't there. Because she's not like gone, right? She's just still in the Orclands doing that stuff.
What do you mean? The like Hrothgar's little troop people? Well, yeah, she has this persona as Euphonia. That's what she's going by within the Orclands, as a traveling bard. Additionally, she's only in the Orclands for like that first bit, and there was actually other stuff she was doing after that. She goes and tours the rest of Cimmeria.
Nice.
So during the epilogue that you guys played out, Euphonia wasn't there.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Right. But she will probably be back through at some point.
I forget how long Gorwinoa was going to live after the campaign's end. It was not super long.
Yeah.
She had a couple of years left.
When we
I
did
think it was like 8, maybe.
When we did the Zorian campaign, fundamentally the idea was that she kind of.
This is the last hurrah.
Right. That killing Blundagad kind of was. It wasn't obviously Blundagad wasn't part of the Dragon Wars by any means, but sort of the last dragon, so to speak, right? But this was kind of
he represented,
that this was the end, and that she understands that she's not a main character anymore, and she shouldn't be, right? That observe and but not really take part. So does she show up in the wilds, maybe as Euphonia at some point, but
so what she's gonna do is she's probably gonna sing her song about the Second Alliance War, and also compose something about the fight between Gregor and Etude, and then sing that, and then honestly probably die after that.
I didn't realize quite how old she was.
Well, she was. I mean, her age was always confusing because of the Dragon War time jump.
Well, oh yeah.
She was pretty old.
She was about 50, which is pushing it for orcs.
Yeah.
Let's see. We had the sword.
I had something for that too.
Wait.
That if Hector showed up and said, "Hey, this is the real sword," Gregor was gonna tell Hector to go fuck himself. Basically. There's another prepared moment of if Hector shows up and tries to say, "Hey, this is the real sword," Gregor says, "No, this is the real sword." Basically.
Yeah, I didn't really have a plan for that. It was just like something you threw into Gorwinoa, and it's like, oh. Well, even in the story for Yggdrasil, like it's supposed to be like using the original iron and forging the tooth into it. So it's not like this is the sword that the first chief had before that, because it's the same one.
I kind of, for me, in my sort of envisioning headcanon, whatever you want to call it, I kind of came to realize at some point that, sort of to Gregor, it's like, and even sort of in this time period, like the actual authenticity, like it doesn't matter if it's the actual sword or not, right? It's more about the belief, the symbol of, it's what the sword represents. It's what Gregor and the Orclands think the sword is. Whether or not it actually does it actually have Zeus's tusk in it?
Well, we all know that. We all know
Well,
that
just say Zeus has
powers,
a
that
tusk,
if enough of them believe a thing is true, it's true. That's how they get their spaceships to fly.
It seems to represent like very specifically like the United Orclands, right? Like, yeah, where like that's what the first chief was. That's what Gregor is. It's not just the Orclands where orcs are this diaspora or not diaspora, disparate tribes. It's like it represents, cooperation, or if you prefer, dictatorship.
Right.
Unity.
Right. Yeah.
We go back. Fascism isn't invented for another.
I didn't say fascism. I said dictatorship.
Isaac did for another 2,300 years.
Gregor is not a fascist. I will say that.
Yeah.
I think
I think the word has been broadened in its meaning beyond like the hyper specific version you're using, but like
I think there's some debate about what fascism means, but it's fundamentally a 20th century political movement.
I
regardless of
don't
like
really care about us using like completely accurate political terms for describing how orcs are governing goblins and other orcs, to be honest.
I didn't read 2 essays on fascism to not have specific points about it.
So I had 2 other big points. One of them was about the Norse stuff. Another one was about some other stuff.
What the fuck is up with the Norse stuff?
Yeah, so Norse stuff had come up a little bit in the first Alliance campaign with Antipike was possessed by Thor, and I had to come up with some reasoning for that. So that kind of, you guys got the rules on that. Like you have to kill someone that's possessed to gain the possession. This is another idea I considered, is that the killing blow on Jormungandr, that weapon absorbs the power. But it already established a different rule that when you kill a Norse creature in its like fully natural form, then you don't absorb it that way.
That's the way to defeat it without getting like curse possessed.
Yeah, so no one got Needhogger's power when you guys killed him.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Thing.
Did because there's this interesting like weird tidbit where like where Korjak was a PC and he sort of stopped being a PC, and so now he's just this random drunk wandering the land with 2 gods inside of him, which is just fascinating.
Yeah, that's like what I was a little disappointed about, is that a lot of the Norse stuff kind of tied into Korjak, like having that be his like hook for his character was so it, like I had all these things that I planned that was like bringing Norse stuff in, and it still kind of worked for Hrothgar. I don't know, I didn't really do anything with Ulthan when he got Sir.
Yeah,
I guess I should.
Well, Ulthan's thing was the Phoenix.
I feel like you already had kind of a thing for that. Bringing it in didn't make any sense. It was just a way to do little themed adventures like Yggdrasil. So this last adventure was Thor's journey to Jotunheim.
Nice.
So you guys guessed like frost giants correctly, but it didn't come up with how I did it. But
Loki accidentally kind of spoiled it. Not spoiled it, but
I told him to do little hinty things, so it's fine.
To me, I think it's just canonically hilarious, the notion that he like accidentally and really lets it slip. Was Chief Mir intended to be Odin, or were they just frost giants?
Chief Mirth, if you're good at anagrams, was actually intended to be Thrym.
Oh, of course.
Intended to be who?
Thrym, Chief of the Frost Giants.
Wasn't I telling you about Thrym, William?
I remember you saying
Thrym.
Specifically.
And you guys probably don't recognize the puns my dad was doing in the earlier ones, but I told him the plan all along that Loki was going to steal the crown at the coronation and bring it to the Frost Eyes. So he was doing a bunch of puns on Thrym and Thrum.
Yeah.
That obviously did not land for any of you because you didn't understand what was going on.
There was an audience of 2, you and your dad.
Yeah, exactly.
That's an incredibly deep joke that I enjoy in the aftermath, though.
Yeah. Knowing that it was there. So in the journey to Jotunheim, it's kind of like this little trickster story where the frost giant chief like sets up all these contests for Thor and his friends to participate in. And they're participating against a bunch of giants, and the giants are, when they leave, the Frost Giant King reveals how they lost the contests, because they end up losing all of them. So one of them was they had to out-eat this guy, and it turns out that guy is literally like fire. So the reason he's eating the table too is because he's burning it.
That's cool.
and they lose to the runner because the runner is literally thought, so you can't run faster than the speed of thought.
Not yet.
Yes,
With modern technology, like we can calculate that speed. So go on.
Yeah, that's true. 200 miles per hour. There's a drinking contest where Thor has to drink from this really big, like, horn, and he's able to drink from it, but it only lowers like an inch or two. And it turns out that horn is like connected to the ocean, so he's just lowered the entire ocean's depth by an inch or two.
Yeah.
So that's the swimming through the tunnels, like doing something with the ocean for that adventure.
Doesn't the story end with the giants like revealing all of this, and then telling Thor to go fuck himself, and then they like disappear? And then,
yeah. So after they leave, the giant
vanish.
comes and reveals it all and says, "So that's why we had you leave, because we're really scared of you. So fuck off and never come again. Also, here's like a gold necklace or something." Yeah, I didn't do that part because I feel like it's hard to have those types of challenges occur in a game where it doesn't just like feel bad. So I was trying to still have those themed challenges, but not have it be that way.
Don't have us lose.
There's two other challenges to that where there's a wrestling contest, and they have Thor wrestle with like an old granny first, and he loses, and she turns out to be old age, so everyone's defeated by old age, right?
Yeah.
And then they have him, okay, well, maybe you can like go pick up our cat, you know, 'cause you can't even beat an old lady. Maybe you can pick up our cat. So Thor goes and tries to pick up the cat, and all he's able to do is like lift it so like its paws are touching, but he can't get it like higher than that, where it's, you know, he's just pushing up in the middle of it because the cat is so big. It's a giant cat. The cat is Jormungandr, who's encircling the world, so he almost like broke the border of the earth.
It's a very cool story, but I think that like changing it so the way you did made the adventure very fun.
Yeah. So you used the Jormungandr. How do I ask the question? Was that intended to be paired with the challenges, like because of the sort of Norse route there, where he's one of the challenges?
Yeah. It's kind of one of those challenges, and I'd planned it all along. This was something I'd planned from like near the start of the campaign.
Were the challenges planned from that early as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like
sick.
Yeah, I would have a guy that was like very good at eating, and another like speed challenge.
Yeah, that's cool.
And the ice tunnel one for the ocean, because like the drinking of the drinking from the horns that reduces by an inch or two is kind of hard to do within like skill rolls where it actually feels interesting.
Yeah.
So notionally, they were, instead of being giant, instead of being like fire pretending to be an orc, the idea was they're going to be frost giants pretending. Instead of fire pretending to be a frost giant, it's like a frost giant pretending to be an orc. So like the runner, like I don't know, he's like a frost giant. He was like fast. He's like a good runner in a frost giant.
The runner was a frost-eye orc possessed by the Norse god of thought.
Yeah.
So they were. So they were orcs. They were just all sort of kind of orcs, kind of all sort of possessed / frost giant-y. Is that the idea?
Yeah.
That's cool.
I also had old age if you guys tried to take on the whole crew. I had planned a Thrym fight, but it kind of didn't feel like it worked with where the pacing was, so I cut that.
Cool. Yeah, the pacing on it was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the plan was that like Thrym would be upset that you passed all the challenges, so then he would attack you, and the rest of the tribe would not go along with it because he's breaking his oath as a host.
I almost gave you an excuse for it when I stole his necklace.
Yeah. I feel like I could have made it work, but it just felt like, this is just another fucking fight. It doesn't add anything to the story. So.
Yeah.
Got it.
What was the point of the wolves? What's the point
that was to have an earthquake to establish that earthquakes were coming because of Jormungandr starting to be released.
Gotcha. Rumble started making noises. Yeah, it was a good foreshadowy fight.
Yep.
Did he just not reset any of his powers? Is that kind of what happened? Did he just like not refresh his powers?
No. Well, what happened was I decided that Jormungandr would be as strong as Rumble. Rumble is a level 15 axe with how many like magic item level 15. So Jormungandr is a level 15 monster.
Oh,
Gotcha.
That could have gone so much worse if
we
David
really-
decided to sink all his gold into making him level 20.
Yeah, because I had all my post-adventure gold.
Yep.
I sunk into my organization instead of the axe. Oh.
Yep.
Oh,
I was
shit.
kind of expecting you to do the axe with it, so I was like, okay, this will probably get up to like level 18 or something. And I guess you didn't get enough gold to get that extra plus, and you didn't want the other abilities.
Honestly, I didn't even look at that last gold. I didn't ever even consider giving it to Rumble. I was just like, oh yeah, clearly I'm using this for the organization. Not even gonna bother trying to calculate anything else. We're done. Why would I spend on more on my axe unless if that was just like the roleplay thing to do?
I think it kind of shows like how good your guys' builds were. That a level 15 solo monster, even with like no healer, didn't force a second wind out of everybody.
I mean, I didn't use my healing ability, either one of them.
Right.
So yeah.
I didn't think
Yeah, a lot of effective HP left.
Yeah,
Felt-
yeah.
felt a little bit like we got lucky. His AC was very high. We snuck a
What was
good
his-
number of hits in.
What was
33,
his?
I think.
33 was his AC?
I think
30,
so.
32. But
Oh,
yeah.
it's 33.
Okay.
Out of
But
32 missed.
we're all attacking it like pretty high.
Like he has like
Yeah.
some conditional bonuses. I think that's why you missed that one. I forget what was going on with that.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to say like he was easy, but I just kind of thought there was gonna be like a second. Look, he did sort of have a second phase.
Yeah.
I was kind of waiting for that, but I guess it makes sense that he was tied to Rumble, and also that power level is always weird, right? Like,
Yeah.
like 15th level solo monster for a level 11 party was not trivial by any means. We were fully rested and we're like full bore on dailies.
No,
Some of us
didn't
were.
yeah, because Hrothgar burned all of his on the wolves.
Yeah, that was the day before. I told you guys you got a long rest here.
Oh.
Yeah.
I never
Yeah,
used it
we-
on my character sheet.
Yeah, we had full powers for this.
Oh. I must have done that, I just didn't remember. That's funny.
I think I raged in the first half and forgot that I was raging by the second half.
Yeah.
Because that actually matches up with what my character sheet's got. It's hilarious.
Yeah. I did somehow I had plans that didn't that I didn't there was something I had planned at the end of the last session. Usually I would have written this down in the chat to remind myself, and I didn't this time, and I don't remember what it was at all, but worked out.
Oh man, the Ulthan adventure where you freed yourself instead of stabbing yourself to get free.
Oh yeah, I freed the Phoenix.
Yeah, that's gonna be part of the time travel campaign.
Can we talk a little bit about Ulthan? Because I kind of like his story is one that I don't want to say I'm a little lost on, but I kind of got a little lost on. Like I think we I don't want to say needed a little more screen time, but like
You talking
Yeah,
about
I mean-
the Phoenix stuff, or his
yeah,
personality?
the Phoenix plot.
Yeah, I think
I
probably
kind of
what would have
got a
helped.
little confused on. It felt like there was maybe it's. I mean, the campaign has been going on for so long. And forgive me if I've forgotten.
No.
I'm probably pretty good on it. I feel like there was like an Ulthan adventure that we didn't get to.
Yes, that's
That's
exactly
related
what
to the
happens.
Phoenix.
Yeah. Because there was clearly setting one up with the goblins, and I was supposed to go there and talk to the chief or something. And then, was that preempted by me freeing myself, or?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Yeah. So, okay. So what was going on? There's this concept called syncretism, where over time, gods will kind of fuse together within people's conception of them. So Jupiter
yeah.
and Zeus were not originally the same god with how the Romans and the Greeks worshipped them, but then the Romans copied all of the Greek stuff. and then they became the same.
Right.
There's like 12 different gods of war within Rome that are all kind of Mars, but are different versions of them. So the Greek gods, whatever, you get the point. So what's happened in Cimmeria is that the Olympians came and conquered Cimmeria from the goblins, and then the goblin.
Wait, all of Sumeria?
Yes.
Okay.
Except
I remember because they were in Greece, but then they kind of realized that they were fucking Greece up, because Greece is just, they're like the normal people in Greece, right? So they, correct me if I'm wrong, Isaac, so they went to Cimmeria, which was sort of the magical, the RB giants part of the world. Correct me if I'm wrong, Isaac.
Yeah.
And sort of established the magical lands.
They came here and made like stronger toys to play with.
Right.
Okay.
Don't want your truck to break. Get a Tonka. So they came here and kicked out the goblin gods in a 100-year war. And through that process, the goblin gods are syncretically linked to the Titans, because that's a older pantheon that the Olympians kicked out.
That's fucking cool.
So the Phoenix is Helios. So that's why there was sort of like two different entities that I was talking about. I'm not sure that really came across, because it's kind of like this mystical thing that is kind of hard to understand and conceptualize.
I didn't get the synchronicity thing. I thought it was two different names for the same god, but I did get that there was two different. Like, you told me the goblin, because I had like intense notes on the goblin stuff in particular. You told me that the goblins have this name, and then there was clearly a second name, and that was all like straightforward. I didn't realize that it wasn't just two names, but it was actually like sort of two gods fused into one. But
yeah, so this entity had also been possessing Aldarian. That's what the Phoenix-born prestige class is. Yeah, since Helios is in the underworld, he's able to send people back through that power.
Yeah, that tracks.
Okay, so you are possessed by Helios. Whoever kills someone who has the power of a Norse god gains that power. So by killing yourself when you're possessed by Sur, Helios gains the power of a god and is able to escape his prison.
Oh, okay. But that didn't happen. Instead, or is that how that happened?
Yeah, that's how it happened. You were struggling, and Helios said, "Kill yourself now," and you stabbed yourself, and Helios emerged, and you also revived through the Phoenix-born power that you got for that one combat.
Right. Okay.
Don't remember which combat.
Yeah, I think the other bit, like Ulthan had like a lot of plot, let's say, that was transmitted through dreams or his backstory or stuff, which was like didn't play out on screen, let's say, which maybe in addition to like clearly, it didn't finish. So if I don't kill myself there, what that's where the follow-up plot happens with the goblins?
Yeah, so the goblins had a plan to like exorcise you instead. So they just want the Phoenix. They don't care about Helios. The Phoenix is the head god within the goblin pantheon.
Okay.
So I
kind of screwed them over by releasing them as a pair.
Yeah, so they were going to exercise Ulthan. There was interpretation of a prophecy where they had to do that like in the ocean. So they're going to take Ulthan out on a boat on the ocean and start the exorcism ritual. The Titans don't want that to happen, so then the Ocean Titan sends a bunch of water monsters to attack the boat. You guys fend off the monsters, and then Helios doesn't want it to happen within Ulthan. He's like unconscious on a slab on the boat, so then you guys have to go inside of Ulthan's mind to defeat Helios inside of him.
Neat.
That's cool.
And Jamie doesn't get a character for that first combat with the water monsters, and then inside of his mind, he gets to play Korn.
Which is foreshadowing that Korm is sort of like taken more control than we realize.
Yeah, so I even made like a little character sheet for Korm. Korm manifested.
That's why it was there.
Right.
Yeah.
I noticed that. I just didn't know why.
Yeah,
Right, I think you showed it to us at some point. Probably
I was talking
after
about
the
this eventually.
window.
It was really sweet. I really wanted to do it because He's got this cool power where he can throw himself. So he throws the dagger, it hits, and then Core Manifested appears holding the dagger next to where it hit.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, that's the manifestation throw. And the rest of it's basically just like I made a appropriate level 7 character because you were level 7 at the time that adventure was being created. But yeah, then you chose to give into evil once again with your character. So,
was it evil or was it thoughtlessness?
I don't
feel
know.
like
You're always making pacts with demons. I don't care.
I feel like it's not because he's evil though. I feel like it's just because he doesn't quite read the fine print.
Yeah. I mean, like releasing Corum to Siverdom is just like a horrible idea.
It was so excellent.
Which I knew I was doing. I was sort of just like, this is gonna make. I didn't realize it was gonna be the next campaign, but I was like, Isaac will have fun doing something with this at some point.
I'm surprised you never used Quorum for that daily power.
I honestly don't remember what it was. I did notice that like the stats were too low to use. Like it was going to be an action economy issue because he was a +1 weapon and I was at +2 or more at the time, and maybe even 3. And so like just changing weapons was going to be like 4E makes it pretty tough if you don't want to drop a weapon.
Yeah, the daily power is add 3d12 to your damage.
Yeah,
Nice.
that is pretty good. Yeah, but of course, then if that happens, then Quorum gets powered up, which is I imagine what he's trying to do.
Yeah. I'm always tempting you with power for evil.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, my characters have a habit of not giving into the temptations, but then giving in anyway.
Not to circle back, but the Gregor is a fascist. Gorwina thinks Gregor is a fascist. Can I just say that, like, I'm a little confused. I understand he had a little bit of like classic Greco-Roman despot in him, but fundamentally, we were like he was like the pro-working class, anti-slavery party in the Orclands, fighting like pro-slavery. Work till you die, and then we'll reanimate your body to keep working for us. Party, and I'm a little offended because like we like the stature of like Gregor is fundamentally like part of Gregor's legacy is as a champion of the little guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's what I was going about with the other part is that there wasn't a great choice. Like sort of in Gorwina's mind, you're both villains, but you know, one of you gets to be a hero in the story later on. So.
We're both villains. This is like people make modern political jokes about like centrists and like both sides are equivalent. Like, okay, on the one hand you have Gregor. Okay. Cons. It is definitely kind of in the might is right. Hey, like, look, I'm the biggest, I'm the strongest, I deserve to rule. Maybe a little bit of a temper, can be a little emotional, can be a little merciless when pushed. Pros is building his empire broadly by consensus, right? Pretty much all the tribes that joined us did so. It was kind of a bargain, but ultimately willingly, right? Ultimately, he said, "Hey,
Gregor."
Hold on, let me finish." The Night Souls joined us because they said, "Hey, like, if you help save us from the monsters that are killing our people and are going to drive our tribe into extinction, we'll join you. If you help save the World Tree and by extension the Orclands, we'll join you. If you drive out the other party that is equivalent to you that has enslaved our people, pillaged our lands, and murdered most of the adult population, if you free us from that slavery and give us back our lands and autonomy," again, these are equivalent sides. The one that, the rape of the endless autumn rape of grass and Gregor's, rescue of grass and, deliverance of grass, the returning of their autonomy under a self-elected representative. Those, of course, are equivalent. In Corwino's mind,
I feel like you
I'm a
stretched
little
some things
offended.
with grass, but yeah.
We did.
No,
What are you talking about? It was pretty clear that like the Endless Autumn had rolled in.
You did give
They
most
had
of their land to other
massacred.
people.
No, we didn't.
Didn't we resettle a bunch of people in their land?
We settled.
Like, hey, you're not using this. We're just gonna put some people here and down to their land.
Well, to be fair, most of them.
Okay, hold on. No. Rothgar has a point. On the one hand, we have Gregor who says, "Look, 90% of your population has been brutalized, massacred.
Well, we
So
talked
we're
about
gonna-
that. You were
we're gonna
forming a
move
new
s-
tribe, right?
We're gonna move some clanless in to help you rebuild and help resettle the land." So that's on one side, and weighted equally with that are the people that brutalize and massacre 90% of their tribe.
I have a thought, which is I don't think
they
there's.
raised them as zombies.
Yeah. Gorwinoa doesn't have to think that they're equal. She doesn't have to be weighing these things against each other. She doesn't have to live through it. It's not like somebody who's like,
Why am I the fascist? Why
Why
am I the fascist?
you're the fascist, they're the necromancer. She doesn't like either side. But she's looking at the long view of history. It's not like she's picking between two presidential candidates.
Again,
She's
no one is
saying-
the fascist here, but
Well, right, whatever. She's just saying, like, yeah, I kind of don't like these two people. Like, she's not going to live through it. She's just sort of like not giving you an active blessing. Also, probably as a secondary point, she probably and rightly thinks that the Endless Autumn are going to lose, so that's why you matter more and you're worth working. Because if they're going to lose,
Isaac said she was pro Endless. Like she
he
made
said-
a decision.
he didn't say she was
I
pro
am
Endless Autumn.
I am offended.
Yeah,
Well,
She
he didn't
said
say
she
pro
said that
Endless-
she sided with them.
No,
she
she
was like,
decided
we're gonna-
against us. It's different.
so as someone with pretty clear
Arguably,
anti,
it's different.
Yeah,
as someone with pretty,
It's almost worse.
It is almost worse.
as someone with pretty clear anti-Gregor and Gregor's a tyrant credentials, I actually don't really get the pro Endless Autumn angle. I gotta be honest.
I don't think it's pro
And
Endless
not
Autumn. I think she thought the Endless Autumn was going to lose and didn't want Gregor to have too long of an arc of control over the Orclands. I don't think it's more.
I
than
think,
that.
I think we're
Where did I
overplaying
fucking-
the importance of the Gregor as a fascist within her decision making, as I conceptualized it.
Where did I screw up? Was it championing the working class, trying to make
You're
lives
lawful.
better for our most vulnerable citizens? Was that where I messed up? Was that where I lost her vote? Was it the anti-slavery platform that she took on?
Well, you were kind of you are kind of
Or
pro
widower.
Prom, but there is that.
When you got rid of the
Gorwinoa-
goblins,
To be fair to Gregor,
Champion
that
of
happened.
freedom?
That happened after all of this. That happened after she left the Orclands.
Yeah, the whole goblin thing was never in her decision making. That was happened afterwards.
El Goblin are people.
And yeah, I'm also not sure that she cares about goblins.
Yeah, it's unclear.
Um,
I'm a little confused on this point. I'm hyperbolizing a little bit because again, it's kind of. I just like. I mean, to me, there's an interesting question. Is like I don't know. Like ultimately, was kind of we there was a joke early on about this. Like is Gregor a lawful stabilizing influence or a chaotic influence? Like was what Gregor done ultimately good for the Orclands? Was what he did to the Orclands evil, good, chaotic, lawful?
I have an answer. What he did was clearly
Because
lawful.
Gregor is a fascist in saying that Gregor was lawful evil. Was a lawful evil influence on the Orclands.
I don't think it is. Zach. I don't think it is.
No. Hold on. What he did was clearly lawful, and if you look at the 4E alignment chart, there's no such thing as lawful neutral or lawful evil. There's just lawful good. Ergo, he's lawful good.
that's an excellent argument. I have
But
no.
fuck,
no
I mean,
way to
they
fight
have
that.
it.
The 5 alignments are lawful good, neutral good, neutral evil, chaotic evil. That's it.
Well, as a chaotic character, I guess that makes, in this framework, it means that Gorwinoa was, as a chaotic evil character, yes, it makes sense that she would be opposed to
Hang on.
a lawful good character.
Is there not chaotic good? Is that not?
No,
one?
there's 5 alignments. It's dumb.
yeah,
Why is-
4E's like branded alignment system is no longer the like grid. It's just a single
So-
line with 5 points on it.
chaotic neutral is the best I get.
Nope, there's no
Well,
such thing as
no.
chaotic neutral.
You have
I mean,
lawful
even
good,
chaotic-
good, neutral, evil, and chaotic evil.
I think
What?
I think it
awkward.
makes sense. I actually think it makes sense. I think the argument it says is, look, like fundamentally good people, like even if you're like counterculture, like fundamentally you believe in like respecting other people, and maybe you jaywalk, but like who gives a shit? That doesn't really affect your morality. Like fundamentally, like maybe you as a person are probably in that chaotic camp, but like
And
what's
therefore
more
a
important
freezy-
is what's more important is that like ultimately at the end of the day, like
Yeah.
like you're kind and respectful, and treat other people and are willing to effectively work within society, right? At the end of the day, push comes to shove, right? And that if you're evil, on the other hand, like, look, you can talk about honor amongst thieves all you want, but at the end of the day, you're going to break any rule that gets in your way. At the end of the day, you're going to do anything you want and anything you can for power and to pursue your evil ends. So, like, I get it. Like, that's how I conceptualize that, but
It's reasonable.
Yeah, I just think they probably should have changed the branding. Like when you use the branding of the 9-grid alignment system, it gets confusing when you eliminate 4 of them. If they just change the name slightly, like good, evil, neutral, whatever, and then change the other 2, it would have confused people less. But
there is
doesn't really
good,
matter.
right? It's lawful good.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
So,
But
like,
if
Rothgar-
lawful good and chaotic evil had 2 different names, like I don't know, unholy and holy as the 2 extremes.
Yeah.
Well, the notion would be that like Rothgar would be a good character.
Yeah.
He'd just be good. And
We
like,
dropped the chaotic tag. Ruther's just good. It still fits everything that he's done.
Yep.
yeah, you're not you're kind of counterculture, but like again, it kind of goes back to the, like fundamentally like you're a good person. You're not trying to just like be evil.
Yeah,
and then like fundamentally like lawful evil, like oh well, I can't because I'm bound by a like at the end of the day, like the chaotic evil, the lawful evil villain, truthfully, at the end of the day, is going to break his rules if it means that, like, you know what I mean? Like, for the most part, right? Like at the end of the day, I can see that. But Gregor's a fascist. I tried to be good. I tried to be lawful good.
Like I feel like you say that, but then, like, the stuff with the goblin, the stuff with the goblin, the stuff with Alexander.
They needed a strong hand.
I feel like you were lawful neutral pretty solidly.
Okay, so I could have brought Gorwinoa in a much more severe way to get that like outcome that she was looking for, but I feel like that would have gone in the direction of Gorwinoa comes in and starts running the party.
A suppressed lower. Well, this is where I said if she had showed up, Gregor was going to fundamentally attack her. At a certain point, after there was a tipping point in the campaign where I was prepared for Gwynedd to show up, and it was going to basically be, look, if I was a young man, I would drop everything and swear myself to you and follow you, Gorwinoa. But at this junction, I am bound by fate. I am on my way. I basically either already kind of think of myself as king or effectively am king. If you're in the Orclands as Gorwinoa, people are going to find out. And obviously, as the patron saintess of fucking orc kind, people are going to want to follow you,
right?
Not me.
And Gorwinoa didn't want that. She wanted something more stable. And I understand that you're like a threat
makes you a
thing
rival.
talked about.
Right, and I was going to attack her. Basically, say, look, either you have to leave the Orclands, or I'm going to attack you. And if you kill me, that's fine because hey, like I think you would be a great ruler of the Orc. I think you'd be a great queen of the Orclands, great chiefess of the Orclands. That would be great. But like honor demands that, like either you leave, or I fight you and you kill me. Right? Like,
yeah, and
there's no middle.
I feel like the more interesting result there is she kills Gregor, but I didn't really want to have a bunch of player death in this campaign.
Yeah.
I liked the epilogue.
Fun and realistic outcome.
Yeah. I liked the ending with the
you think she would have killed Gregor at that point? I don't think so.
Well, if she's like an epic level character and 10 levels higher than you, then
no, not could she kill Gregor?
Oh, would she have?
Would she have killed Gregor?
Oh, I see. That's a very different question.
Not necessarily. It may have set up a vastly different like epilogue section, but I feel like it just kind of Gorwinwa coming in a more concrete way would have taken the focus away from where I wanted it to be for the campaign.
Yeah.
I thought she was going to show up I thought she was going to show up actually during this like epilogue adventure, was where I thought she would fit in.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was thinking about.
I did too, but I thought it would be very like ambiguous and confusing.
I thought she had showed up as somebody that we just didn't know was her.
Oh, nice.
She did. That was Euphonia. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Oh, right. But we as characters, or we as players, kind of knew. Characters just obviously didn't. Yeah, I think I like that you didn't do any of that stuff though, because I think I like we have this whole campaign, which is like the story of it is this is the story of Gregor becoming the king of the orcs. It's not the story of the ramifications of that. Like, yes, there's a little bit of like discussion about the beginnings of that in the epilogue, time skip. But like, what's going to happen in 10 years, 20 years? That's not part of this story. That's a different story. It's neat, but it's a different story. And I like that you didn't.
Yeah.
You sort of like let that go and didn't need to. Yeah, I like how you did it.
All right. Well, I had a few more notes that I wanted to share about Gregor's family, if you guys are interested.
Yeah.
So Gregor never went and visited his mom in the Magelbarshal, and she died during the epilogue years.
Fuck you too. Well, fine. You don't want to do this adventure. I'll just kill her off then. Okay.
There was a point where you asked, like, does anything happen during the interrig years? I made a roll. It just said, nope. That was her dying. I made a few comments earlier on when Gregor became king. Oh, you're gonna go see your mom, and you said, nope, she gotta come here, and she never did.
I'm imagining like old mom Gregor and Gregor just being stubborn about not going to see each other.
Yep, that's exactly what happened. He's gotta come here. No, she's gotta come here.
It's hilarious.
Nothing happened.
Funny.
The other thing is a bit more complicated. Okay, so you guys picked up on the hints that Gregor the Younger is not Gregor's child.
Oh yeah.
What?
Huh?
What?
Yeah, we did.
Excuse me?
Jamie absolutely knew.
He's not just small.
This is beautiful. Gregor and I had no fucking clue. Excuse me? Excuse me?
I even put a little clue if you take a look at his picture.
Oh.
And the picture of his real dad.
Oh!
They're done by the same artist.
I just assumed he was like young. Like, I don't know, like not a little clone of me. So what? I don't know. What? Oh my god. Okay,
I
there's
also
the
had no
true
idea.
Excuse me? Oh, I see. You
I had this
added the
theory.
fucking crew.
When he was like on stage, I had like this was my running theory, and then we like left it because it was like a year and a half of real time in between, talking about this.
How did you figure this out, Jamie?
I didn't know. I wasn't sure about it. I was just like, I thought that would be like a
There
plot
was-
appropriate thing, and he was really different looking.
There was a comment that Laura made when she was about to die after she was poisoned by that marsh snake chief person.
Okay, I
That
get this.
alluded that she had something to tell Gregor, but then you guys saved her and she didn't make her deathbed confession.
I'm really excited in like a few months or a
What
year
the
to
fuck?
go back and watch this game,
What the fuck?
especially now that I know that.
Excuse me? Excuse me? Oh my god.
Yeah, so Tanka Grog had been sleeping with Laura. It actually started up again afterwards.
Like during the time skip, or
Yep. You know, like Tanker Grog stayed behind to watch Castle Thunderhawk, and Laura was also there for a little bit.
Okay.
Fortunately, she's old enough there would no longer be evidence.
Fair. Fair.
That's so funny.
Yep.
I forgot it had that theory.
No
Okay.
opportunity to beat Tankagrog to death with his own spine.
No. Anyway, so what?
There's an after credit sequence.
Additional part that Trajan ruined with his spontaneous role playing. Tankagrog was getting scared that Gregor would find out. So he goes to Alexander and says, "Hey, we got to get rid of Gregor. Like he's causing a problem. We're getting too big. Like we're gonna get taken out by some other tribe soon because we're getting too big. We need to sit back and stop conquering places." There's going to be some sort of coalition, and then we'll have to have a big fight. And I want to just have like the success that we've had. So Alexander says, "Oh yeah, let's talk to the Second Alliance and get someone to take Gregor out." So they talked to Amalganis and arranged for Gregor to go on a hunting trip with just the two of them, where he'll be nice and vulnerable. They tell Amalganis where he's going to be. And that's where Gregor got captured. So it's actually.
Oh, this is backstory.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, I was not understanding what the context was in this.
Mhm.
This is in when. Oh, so you like. Okay, wait. This makes Gregor's killing of Alexander way more justified.
Oh yes,
even
it does.
I do.
No, it
I
doesn't.
do
No, it
remember.
doesn't.
I do remember that
How does it make it more justified? Explain.
there was implications
He
that
tried to kill him.
Alexander had.
Nothing we learn now can possibly make it more justified then. That's not how justification works.
Okay, whatever.
Retroactively, Alexander
Are you the king,
deserved it.
Gregor? Gregor, do you get to decide what justice is?
You weren't the king when you did it. You weren't the king when you did it. So if
Yeah, I was.
He wasn't actually the king of anything. He was just a warlord.
yeah,
He
it
was just a
wasn't.
random
That's
dude.
true. So if,
When I was betrayed, I was
by logic, you were not justified.
But no, but
when Alexander was killed, I mean, we're looking at it from a kind of a mytho-historic perspective. Gregor has always been the king of the Orclands.
That's what I was about to say. Because he is king,
Right.
he's always been king.
But when Dragok becomes king, he will
Once in
also have
future,
always been king of the
motherfucker. Once in
Orclands.
motherfucking future.
Oh right, yeah, sure.
That's correct.
Yeah,
But when Dragok becomes king, he will also have always been king of the Orclands, making his objections even stronger.
well, no, at that point, what Gregor did was unconscionable and terrible.
So when Alexander was killed, we were presented with we had a trusted witness that said that Alexander had murdered Gregor's son. Just for reminding you all,
Right.
that is why
yeah.
Gregor did it. Gregor was told that his brother murdered his son in cold blood, a child, a brain-addled child. No, it was Callum. Never mind.
Yeah.
It
He was
doesn't
told
matter.
that he was told that he had murdered. No, not Callum. Joseph Tanzo. I guess he's not brain-addled. He was never. Yeah, anyway, Gregor was told that Alexander had murdered his son. I don't know, but again, we had a reliable source that Gregor trusted as a witness that said that Alexander, and it honestly makes annihilating the family, like the children of the previous ruler, is consistent with what we know as. So he had motive, and we had a reliable witness, right?
Right. I just thought there should have been a trial, but it doesn't.
Kill his ass.
I just meant at this point, it was like a continuation of a combat they had earlier.
Well, Gregor didn't know that Alexander had betrayed him.
No, that's
He discovered that later. Not the killing of Malik, which turned out to be false, but by William's logic.
No, I actually think that's fair. I think that's completely right. I think that's basically right. That we have to go on the information we had then, and as we see, like the information was wrong, but he wasn't guilty of what he was accused of, even if he was, in some greater sense, actually much worse.
Yes, that's what I was talking about. Trajan ruined my fun
by murdering Alexander.
Yeah. I mean, it was a very interesting event within the campaign. I think it was really cool. So I didn't feel it made sense to oppose it because I knew it would create something interesting if it did come up later on through some sort of reveal. It just never really did. So, I knew that this moment would still be interesting, where I got to tell you all. Anyways,
That's hilarious.
but yeah, the plan was originally that Alexander would start competing with Gregor for the chiefdom after taking out Angor.
I think that was also kind of implied at the time, which was another reason that Gregor had.
Yeah,
it was pretty clear that Alexander was going to be a rival on some level.
Yep. I was not
Fucking
hiding that.
Fucking tank and Grog. I think I almost sent him into the fucking frozen north, and I fucking should have sent him to the fucking cave bears.
Send him to Orc Siberia.
He got punished, didn't he, when he failed to keep what's her name alive, right? Your daughter.
That was Bandir.
Oh God. Okay. Sorry. Oh right.
Or something.
But not like
Someone else.
significantly. No, that was Boryag.
Boryag, yeah, that's right.
I think Boryag got sent to Siberia.
Yeah.
I don't remember, but I think so.
I think you exiled him, and then I just kind of let him leave the story.
I was so sad you killed her. That was such a fun potential romance plot line for Rothgar.
Yeah. So that was something else that I wasn't able to say earlier when you guys were talking about like what happened with Josatan. It was like a continuation of the Alexander plotline I originally had.
Right. You had mentioned that Alexander was as his father, and he was mad. Yeah. That came up during that he was mad about the death of Alexander. You were never going to marry Prostodani, and I think that would have been
of course not. But the plot line was still a really fun one that would have been fun to. I just enjoyed how like as soon as we met, Rothgar was like, "Oh damn, she's a badass lady. I like her."
He would have used you, duplicitous like her mother. That was the implication with the wives, was that like Leith, Calais, and Laura were sort of more traditional political marriages, and that Pila was sort of kind of a like it was either potentially had been clan, it was like a clanless kind of, but there was sort of an implication that not that she had like bewitched Gregor in like a magical sense, but more in sort of a, I don't know, traditional sense of like,
She, used her body to get what
we don't need to make it as base as that, but that she had sort of intrigued and sort of won him over.
Yes, the pregnancy rolls I was making for her indicated she would be pregnant a month or two before the coronation.
Gotcha. Because she's the youngest of the three.
Well, I mean, she's not really fertile anymore. Gregor's been gone for 20 years. But she's the one that did like the fertility rituals.
Oh right, we never really talked. We kind of mentioned that passing. I think we talked about.
Gregor swept it under the rug, and well, it worked. So
has a stern conversation with his wife, like, look, you can't sacrifice pregnant clans with like not while I'm king.
Oh yeah, that's what was happening.
Right.
With Gregor's mom, that kind of gets into some of the like the meta stuff in terms of like the kind of Gregor as a central character, and I know that the mother stuff was a moment where I guess I as a player felt kind of unsure how to approach that, because the main plot line tended to sort of the main story thread. Generally, the RP and story beats kind of had Gregor center frame, right? They tended to be sort of Gregor RP story, Gregor centric storylines, and it felt like, I remember in part like feeling like having kind of another Gregor centric sort of almost side adventure kind of felt awkward in terms of sort of sharing the narrative space, as well as I think we did talk a little bit after you left last time, Abe. Sorry, but we kind of talked about this idea of feeling like in game, like there was a lot of plot hooks and not enough time, like more plot hooks than we had time to deal with. Like I know,
I also felt like that.
Like there's like I know the game XCOM as an example. I know some of you totally know it. Like
yeah,
you know, like you get a bunch of like, oh, like there's alien activity on a bunch of different continents and a bunch of things going on, and like that's one of the main mechanics, right? Is like, look, you can't do everything. Like you have to make a decision. Are you going to go to Africa and rescue, you know, rebel soldiers that have been like, you know, found out and rescue them from their compound, or are you going to go to Russia and, you know, sabotage an alien satellite relay? It's like, look, you can't do both because by the time you know, the satellite relay is going to finish or the rebels are going to be killed by the time you do the other one. And it felt a little like that sometimes.
I liked it, but yeah, I agree that it meant that we felt like we were choosing between plots and couldn't do them all.
Yeah, I think I put a little too much pressure with like the second zombie thing in Marsh Snake based off of what you guys are saying.
So it was interesting. It was more like a meta narrative pressure than it was like an in-game pressure for me.
Mm-hmm. Agree with that. Kind of both, but certainly in the meta narrative. Yeah, I agree.
Like just like as a storyteller, we've been doing these for a long time, and it's just that like I don't feel like I have time to go do that thing for my character because like there's a lot of us and we're focusing on this other part of the story, and this feels too sidetracky and like it's gonna take too much time.
A lot of game hours, right?
Yeah.
You know, is going after Gregor's mother, even if it does feel like there was a moment, which I still kind of feel like didn't necessarily feel like there was a good time for that. But like, yeah, we're going to spend 4 sessions, and like two or three of them are going to be basically like Gregor talking with NPCs via Isaac, while the rest of you sort of listen and like. Not that that's necessarily bad, but also, you know, like for me, there was a lot of moments in this campaign as sort of this unknown character where I at least I felt a little awkward doing that because there were definitely sessions where it was like, yeah, Gregor talks politics with NPCs with, you know, the occasional little cutaway to, you know, the rest of you, but principally, you know, little banter amongst the party members while Gregor does all the talking felt like a lot at times, and like a lot of like spotlight hogging at times.
Something that I felt like we didn't get to until later on. I don't know. I think it was your idea, Trey. Was the like have a kind of like group meeting with the captains and Gregor, and have Gregor was like doing a lot of like seeing what the captains had to say about things before making a decision. I feel like we did 2 or 3 of those that were really, really fun. It was kind of like hold court, but use the captains as like members of the court and get their decision. It was really cool,
right?
And I think it helped with that sharing, which you did an excellent job at. Obviously, you're thinking about it the whole time. You did a really good job at it.
Thank you. I definitely was aware of it and tried to balance. I think that, you know, it's always weird to split the party, but I think that one way to handle that in future is, I think that a lot of that politics stuff, I think some of the like the really important stuff, yeah, like the party listens while like Gregor has to have a really important conversation and the captains are there and maybe we've had a little bit of a pre-meeting, like conversation can happen. I think, you know, like I really liked the Orok adventure where Ulthan, Hrothgar, and Orok just kind of did things during that kind of like, hey, Gregor is meeting with his generals, and like, you know, maybe the party is there, but ultimately, like, you know, Gregor's talking to his people about fucking supply logistics, and Hrothgar is there, Rothgar, spends the first 10 minutes fiddling with the pencils on the table, and then he gets up to go to the bathroom and he doesn't come back, right? And like, what does he get up to? So I think that would be one way. I think that there was moments where I think in retrospect, like, it would have been okay to, it's like, there's 5 of us, right? So it's like 20% of it is just Gregor doing Gregor thing, like from an RP perspective, right? Like 20% of the episode, and like these more story heavy, RP heavy episodes, like 20% is, maybe even 25%, we'll say 25% of it is Gregor talking to important NPCs and doing the story beats, and then the other 75 is, Gregor's meeting with his generals right now, and the rest of it is you got, you know what I mean? And kind of shifted and done more with like, hey, it's okay if Gregor's not here, because Gregor gets gets the solo spotlight, so more time with the party. If you get what I'm saying, in that kind of a split.
Yeah, we took on a very big challenge with this game, I think, actually, and doing something quite different from what we've done in the past. I thought we did a really good job with it and learned a bunch of shit along the way about how to do it better. I think that's a great example. So I'm like, whenever we did those moments, they were great, and doing those a lot more on purpose would be great next time.
I do think that you sort of like did a good job at sort of like queuing it up, and I think it worked well, which is like, often in the narrative we felt the need to go like consult Gregor because he was king, and you being like, fuck off, I don't care, like freed us up to make decisions where our characters could like make more unilateral decisions. Good. And it was really like that worked really well. Also, though I think you missed some of the percentage, because you said 25, 75, and I think the other 15% would be concentrated power of will.
God damn it,
I definitely think that, all things considered, I felt like it was, I think it was a pretty successful experiment. We've noted that there were some similarities in the Orclands kind of structurally to the Zorian War campaigns, and
what could I say? I have a type.
Nothing wrong with that. I was gonna highlight that.
I like the type.
Even with kind of a similar meta structure, I think that this allowed us to really kind of explore it from a different angle that I think, to me, certainly felt novel. Being able to kind of hone in and drill in a little more. I think that within that, I think it emphasized, if we are telling, kind of shifting more towards telling individual stories within the larger story, which is something that we did a little bit of in the Zorian Wars, but there was more character-specific moments in Orclands than I think in both of the Zorias combined, and that's a testament to us growing as players. I will say, though, I think that, for the future, a lesson here that I would see is that, I see that kind of necessitating a little bit of a tighter story structure. We talked about this a little bit last time, and I think in text I mentioned like the Silver Dragon adventure. As a standalone adventure, we've said it again, like it was super fucking fun, it was super awesome, and hey, this is super fun, in some ways is justification enough to run it, but at the same time, if we are trying to say, look, there's a central thread that Gregor has, and we're also trying to have kind of a narrative thread and adventures that are centered around the other 5 party members, or 4 party members, and then eventually, less. I guess at one point it was 5 other party members and 4.
For a bit.
So for most of it, it was 4 other party members. This is where, maybe there's there is an adventure at some point that is like Gregor on a personal level, and maybe that would have been, the mother stuff, but like from our TV show example, like that's a lot of arcs that you need to juggle. That having filler is fine, but again, with the feeling of being a little sort of meta narratively rushed, I think that ultimately a little tighter structure, like the adventure you described with Ulthan, like I kind of am a little sad that we.
Well, but that was because of a decision I made. I don't know. I like that I had the choice to make a decision like that.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
that's just
I mean
talking
more
about the Alexander thing that we didn't get to do that. Like, it was
Right.
fine. Like the other choice is good. I liked it.
You were right. I just meant that like I didn't quite feel like there was really a ton. Like I kind of felt like Ulthan was a little unresolved. Dragok felt a little unresolved. I think we did a good job. I think it came together well, but I really would have loved to have had a Standing Horn adventure, even if it required you to kind of railroad us a little bit into making sure
that one did feel like
happen.
I missed it. I agree with her.
And I think that for me, last thing I'll say is, for me, I'll say, like, I feel very comfortable with that. Right, if we have a little less plot hooks and there's a little more like, yeah, it's time to go to Standing Horn, and that's ultimately what serves the narrative the best. Like, I'm very comfortable with having my freedoms stripped. As Gorwina would like Gorwina, I feel comfortable with the stripping of freedoms. Sorry, William, go ahead.
What I was gonna say, my feeling is it's like, I sort of get where you're going for, Trisha, but my feeling was it was more an issue of like, you can't. It's very hard to weave to like have like a sort of world ending, or not necessarily world ending, but like you have like a major plot that like requires a lot of attention, and then also have the other sort of side plots, because it just sort of feels like you have to always do the main plot.
Well, they compete with each other. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's almost like one thing I think maybe in hindsight would be like, if like once Gregor becomes king, like we have like a bigger gap in terms of before Endless Autumn really starts causing problems. And we could have gotten a lot of the side adventures sort of in there, because it would have been like, well, we don't really have anything else to do.
Well, I think that having that really important driving central plot is sort of a testament to the side plots. Like the story needs to be tight because we want to make room for those side stories, which means that they need to have a moment to fit in, because hey, if we're following the pretty driving beat of the main story, that moment for Standing Horn is going to come and go, and there needs to be that moment of like, yes, there's a break in the main plot that is on a meta level designed for you to go and deal with go deal with Standing Horns. Right.
Interestingly, I not like opposite that, but my thought on it was this: like, I think I would have been fine if we had taken, like, I don't know, 2 more months of playing to have had just like a little more. Those just random scenes that aren't really planned and aren't super plot related. They're just like a thing that happens, and it turns into a story afterwards. It's interesting. I love those moments. And if we're like too focused on keeping the plots really tight and moving, I feel like we can. I was trying to keep things moving in this game, right? I was kind of always thinking about that a little bit, and so I'd shy away from those. Like, I'm gonna go mess with this random thing or go do this random thing moments, which can be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree.
Also,
I just like, to me, it's awkward that like, we make a decision with imperfect information, right? Because hey, we're playing the characters, but that means that we don't explore that. Like, one of the PCs doesn't get their sort of their primary character arc story.
I will say for
And
Ulthan,
if we can actually on some level, it's like we shouldn't be able to like accidentally like we could go left Rothgar's like story and big character moment is right, and left is kind of continuing, and we get to choose paths. Like, I don't think we should, on some level, like, I don't think we should be allowed to like accidentally go left, right? Like, oh shit, we accidentally, oh no, we
I
passed
don't know.
we
We
passed
split the party that
Rothgar's,
one time, and it was really good.
we accidentally skipped Rothgar's, like, his sort of chance to be in sort of the primary spotlight. Sorry, Rothgar, like, we're not turning around. We're not turning around.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened with Dragok.
Yeah, that was unfortunate. I wanted the Jargok adventure. I was excited about it.
And I think ultimately that's really what I mean is, I think that, again, in the past we were really against the notion of kind of being railroaded into things, but I think that
tell us you have a cool adventure. We'll go there.
Yeah.
If it is a really important, if it's a really
We'll figure
important
it out.
story beat, then I think it's okay to kind of shoehorn it in. Obviously, anyone, all of us would be, aren't going to make it awkward. Like, yep, you guys have to go to Standing Horn now, but like, lower, lower the, it's like all you have to do, all you kind of on some level, all you need to do is like lower the urgency of the other hooks and give us a reason to be in that area, right? And then like, boom, we're solved, right? Like,
Yep.
I also want to just like, I don't want to spend all of this talking about things that we wish were different. Maybe it's I don't know. This campaign was so much fun. And I think we should at least make sure to restate that, because I thought this was just, it was like just, yeah, I don't know. It was, the Endless Autumn provided this a little bit because there was like a bigger threat, but it felt like, especially like, we just had this freedom to just do things, which was really fun. So like, I guess that doesn't necessarily play with what Trajan was just saying, but in some sense, I also just loved the story decision capabilities, and maybe also it was easier to not be Gregor, because I think Trajan probably put like being the main plot driver is so much more work than what we did. But I don't know. I just thought this campaign was awesome.
It was super fun.
I certainly agree, and it's true that I think some of my worries here or my comments here come from a place of being like, I felt like I'm one of the 5 NPCs, or I'm one of the NPCs. I'm Freudian slip. Freudian slip. I'm one of the, I'm 20% of the party, and a lot of the time I'm taking up like 60%, and that's why I think I feel passionately about this idea of like yeah, like I really wanted to make sure that you guys had but
yeah,
I loved it too. Standout moments, as the king, I'm going to start.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good idea.
Setting in motion, the decision. I think it might have been a Gregor decision ultimately, but the party being gung ho and rolling with it from the get go in Bridal Fields. Like, I think we established
the party.
I think we put our foot down and collectively decided to stand up to our bully. And I really liked, like, for me, from a character perspective, that moment felt really defining of, in some ways, being bound by fate, but also being like I'm gonna have my cake and eat it too. Kind of an approach to fate of like, look, if I'm the man, I'm gonna be the man. And I remember just that session, because remember we did like split sessions.
Yep.
With it, there was 2 combats.
And it was a narrow fight on our half.
We had Aldarian with us, right? I thought we did really well.
We didn't know it was him. We did, but like the enemies were really dangerous, and I think we just had some moment where it was like
it was the big Schwagen, right?
Yeah, it felt like we did really well, but it was because we had to do really well. If we hadn't done really well, we could easily have lost it. It felt like fight, which I think was just a testament to good balancing.
Yeah, I had to knock down those fights a little bit.
Yeah, I imagine.
Yeah, I think I removed like 2.
Did we fight a fucking Bodak?
What a Bodak!
Oh Jesus!
Of all fucking things.
Yeah.
Other fight.
Oh, Barry was cool. I do remember that. We didn't know it was him, right? We thought it was somebody else, and we found out right afterward.
Yeah. I think when you came out of Battlefields, you got confronted by the Heralds of Halkias, which wanted to like steal your stuff.
Right.
And then Aldarian turned on his flame powers and told him to fuck off.
Yeah. And then we all became his biggest fan.
Other people, fun moments.
Yeah, the Silver Dragon fight. I mean, okay, so but plot relevance this has been discussed, but I just remember climbing up in the tree with Hrothgar and then like leaping down. It's just like some moments of it must have been like having us spent more time in the GM chair recently. It must have been more like, okay, I guess you do that.
The dragon dragging Gregor through the treetops will be forever emblazoned in my mind. This is so good. Oh. Let's not forget the weird 3D cube Night Soul adventure.
Oh, that was my favorite.
So cool.
Yes.
So fucking
Pull up that
cool.
map. Can you pull up that map? Do you still have it?
Yeah. I still have them all. I'll have to pull it out of archive. But yeah.
Oh yeah, wait.
Room.
Oh, I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah.
That was so cool.
So cool.
Oh, and then we discovered we could like push off of it. It gave like a friggin' Ender's Game feel of like the enemy's gate is doing stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Ulthio was a weird character, like in terms of like how he felt to play. He always felt more flexible before I'd burned my like teleporting abilities, and it was always like that the entire fight felt like that flexible, which is neat.
This is so complicated to map out. I really want to do this in person at some point.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Not with this map, but with like a real 3D map and magnets for the characters.
Right. Yeah. You're on the outside of it.
Yeah.
Even if they're supposed to be on the inside, you're on the outside because that's easier.
No.
Can I steal
you'd
this?
be on the
Isaac?
inside and you. Yeah.
Oh,
you
you'd have a control magnet outside that you'd be sliding. Or no?
Yeah.
Like, how would you reach? I was just thinking, how would you reach in? Like, if the box is closed,
it's not closed. It's actually you have each of the 4 walls are on rollers, so you roll them in and out and access the interior. And the top is connected through the stalagmite.
That's sick as fuck.
That is really cool.
Yeah, this was.
I forgot about that fight. That was so cool. I liked 4E combat, and I know that I also probably spent the most time obsessing about 4E combats. That may have just been like an obsessive nature thing, but I thought it was really fun.
Oh right, I had it so that when you entered this map, it starts playing the music. Enter the cube.
I also actually had a decent time with the 4E combat.
Yeah, I mean it's done really well. It's so easy to make encounters that are really interesting because all of the monsters are so fun. And then you can spice it up with the terrain, which is very fucking obvious for the cube room how much that does. But yeah, I was really doing so much for the lunar adventure with just the cube room, but also like there was that teleportation room.
Oh,
With
craziness!
all the random portals. And then knowing that you'd have to flee backwards through all of this as like the monster chases you. Like you could have taken on the moon monster and killed it, and that would have had like a slightly different outcome for everything. But you guys were kind of low at that point, so I understood why you ran away instead.
No, the chase scene was pretty epic. That entire thing.
Yeah,
I think honestly your decision to say screw it with like the like forced inconvenience of like you being forced to say a long rest is every time you sleep, and instead letting it be just a long rest is every time it feels narratively appropriate was also
that
really
was
smart.
a wonderful thing to talk about and wonderful result.
Yeah, that was.
I pushed back against it initially, and I was wrong.
Yeah, I think I also did, and yes.
I don't remember my position, but it was a good choice. It was quite fun. And it stops it from just being a combat slog, right? Because like the way it's set up, you kind of like have to have like combat slog adventures where you go through a bunch of fights.
Right, and you didn't have to like have unnecessary fights in order to set up the final fight as being as hard as you want it to be or whatever. You could just do, you could just like put some vague time pressure of, oh, there's an army there and it's going somewhere, and now suddenly we don't really have time to camp out for a couple of days. It was like,
well, you mean you just kind of scale the encounter, right?
yeah. No, yeah, and I mean you can have some encounters where you can like long rest for it, like this last final fight. But it's like if you want a fight where you've depleted PC's resources, you aren't forced to stick a bunch of fights in front of it if you don't want that for the plot. You can instead just have the entire adventure has some lead up, and you just don't give them the time to like wait 2 days, which was like it just seemed more flexible from like a adventure building perspective. Was my impression.
It was all upside.
Oh man, I liked so many of these adventures, like the Rock Tribe adventure, where you like have to tunnel through to like some location, and then there's just like a huge fight, and they can call in reinforcements from the rest of the mine. It was all like on the same map. That was really cool. It was so big, I had to like scale down the grid to make everything fit. Infinite Void was cool, but more from like you guys were talking about like the like small character moments. I felt like there was a lot more with that adventure.
Yeah.
The start at Battlefields was
so fun.
Yeah, I really liked that. And I also liked Lone Tree and Marsh Snake a lot, just because it like the dungeon, like trying to make it feel like this other world that you're experiencing as you go into the realm of the gods.
Stuck out to me for sure.
Yeah, like I think it came through a lot in the Night Soul one as well. We already kind of talked about that, but that was more trying to have it feel creepy. And I even tried to do that with the music by, we're doing a fantasy game, but then bring a bunch of like techno music for that one. Electronic music, not necessarily techno, but yeah, for Lone Tree, like the Norse connection, and there was another point that you guys missed for that, but it wasn't super important. So there was the chief, and there was the chiefess, Fjalf and Skotsky, and the chief died, and Skotsky lived. And there was also this other guy, Pjolf. So there's Fjalf and then Pjolf.
Right.
Oh, right, yeah.
So for Norse mythology, there's like Nidhogger is this like snake that lives at the bottom of Yggdrasil and is like chewing the roots trying to kill it. And at the top of the tree, there's like this eagle that's like looking everywhere. And then running between the tree is a squirrel. Pjolf was possessed by the squirrel and was working with Nidhogger. And was bringing news to Nidhogger of what you guys were doing. And I also mentioned during the Lone Tree adventure, like wildlife, and I mentioned squirrels quite a bit.
Yeah.
I remember you talked about squirrels. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, I do remember the squirrels.
You told us about the blue squirrel. I think we made jokes about squirrel-related. I remember us making squirrel-related jokes.
Yeah, the squirrels were people watching you. But then he kept a low profile and didn't get caught, so that was a little DM thing that never came up. I'm not.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. I feel like this is the like because I've been running published adventures. Like there are some things that are just impossibly difficult to reveal to the players.
Yeah.
Without like just directly telling them.
Yeah, I mean part of it's just having motivations for characters that are like make sense, and if they come up, they come up. Also during the Lone Tree adventure, so we had Elise guest starring for that, and she wanted to do her own character. I actually already had like a character designed for that would guest star in it, where you went into the roots of the tree and found like this person like tied up down there.
Yeah, we rescued her. Rescued
right.
the.
Yeah, that was Odin.
Oh, would you? How about that?
Odin did make an appearance.
Yeah, so here's Chilot, who's a woman, but is possessed by Odin, and has a spear and an eye patch for her token. So there was this like little side plot about Tankergrog hating One-Eyed Joe for stealing his woman.
I remember that vaguely. Now that you
mhm.
mentioned it, yeah.
Yeah, that was like a red herring for you guys thinking that he was Odin because it was like a guy with one eye and a walking stick and a wide brimmed hat. So that's like, oh, that's what Odin looks like when he's trying to be inconspicuous. That Avery caught onto and was trying to find him. The woman that Tankergrog and One-Eyed Joe had fought over was Shalot.
Kind of fun.
And side note that never came up. Let's see. Prior to settling down with One-Eyed Joe, she traveled on the outskirts of human civilization and had a child with a human. After the birth, the child was taken from her by the human man, and she was banished from their village. She returned to One-Eyed Joe, but hasn't had any children since. Her child is Korjak.
Huh.
Oh my god.
The fuck?
We met Korjak's mother and we didn't realize.
The fuck did you just say to me?
Mm-mm.
Did Ben know this?
Nope.
Like he hit it was sort of Korjak had sort of
Yeah, Ben checked out very early on in the campaign. I
Yeah,
don't
fallen
think he was
into
a
the-
regular after Rock at all, actually.
I think he
Yeah, that's fair.
not to be callous, but I think he kind of checked out before the campaign.
Yeah. No, Ben has never been a regular with the group for the last while.
12 years.
Yeah.
There was a while where he was more regular than me, like when I was in college.
Yeah, I think when he was
12
playing,
years, 12
Hold on,
years
shit.
ago.
Shit, how old are we? No, that's 12 years ago. Shit.
Yeah.
he was a regular when he was playing Hector. I think
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
Ever since we went remote, he
I
hasn't
was just
really
realizing that when I said college, that was 12 years ago for me. I graduated in 2011. God damn it.
Oh, no.
Yep,
He
Yeah.
played Pretty Boy pretty regularly.
Yeah, he was
that's-
there for
that's true.
that.
That's true.
He mostly left in like I want to say 2020, 2021.
After,
Something like that.
COVID.
yeah, after we started the
After COVID.
Yeah, after, yeah. Not important. Yeah, man. Anyways, that's all I got on it.
William, gotta hear your memorable moments.
The best Moon campaign, the Moon adventure.
Yeah.
I thought it was like the most just what I had the most fun. Like I thought it was just such a cool adventure. I thought it really highlighted 4E, what 4E can do in a way that I thought was really impressive. So and we discovered it wasn't made of cheese, so there's that too.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't work that out.
And that's okay. That's okay.
Y'all feel like you accomplished kind of. It's weird to say accomplished, but you kind of felt sort of satisfied with sort of your character's journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't think I was going to be until like right near the end. And then it like Oroc's death and all the results of that and the epilogue stuff was like, oh, this put a little cap on it in a totally different, unexpected way, and it really worked out.
Yeah. I think Ulthan's story, like a lot of it happened off screen, but for me personally it was like it worked really well. I think that probably that didn't that may not have translated it quite as well, but by the time we went through and he freed himself from the thing, like mostly what I was thinking about is more like less his grand, like adventure and more like how does he feel? And from that perspective, I basically got to spend the last quarter of the campaign just like, how is he feeling about all this? What does he really want in life? And that was a lot of fun.
Nice.
I think I found a good place with Gregor. I kind of spoke about this before, being kind of that central character. I think I could have done more to sort of initially shape kind of. I think I needed to spend a little more time on his motivations and probably talk to Isaac more. I think ultimately, it's certainly something if we do this kind of model again, I think that whoever is in the driver's seat probably needs to spend more time with the DM than we did for this one. Because at times I did feel a little lost as Gregor. Initially I kind of had a pretty lawful vision for Gregor. I've spoken about this a little in the past. I kind of, the conceptualization of Gregor was, you have this, young, fiery warlord, right? Initially, that, drinks, fights, and fucks, right? And he's, young, and he's the chief of, militarily probably one of arguably like the strongest like a single military clan. So he does the natural thing, which is be a warlord, right? He gets captured, and I liked this idea of he kind of has this experience where he was a big fish in a small pond, right? And a firm believer in might is right, which is easy when you're a big fish in a small pond. And I kind of had this character notion that part of his growth while he was in Samaria, he gets enslaved, he sees fucking Zoria, right? And he goes, oh fuck, I'm not a very big fish, am I? Right? I'm the biggest orc in my my tribe of 3,000 people. Me and my 200 fighting orcs can go bully Earth Mother and Skyfather, and then 3 or 4 years later he arrives in Nox, which has a population that's like half the size of the Orclands, with a fucking living god, dragon god reigning. And the idea was initially that he would be kind of coming back with the notion of being kind of, that he'd sort of mellowed and kind of saw what, in some ways, despotism. I know Gregor's a fascist, kind of has aged, this is aged poorly. His idea was he would sort of come back as sort of a lawful entity, because I'd originally kind of conceptualized, I kind of understood the Orclands as being kind of lawless. The idea was that he would come back as kind of like, he was fiery and young, and then he went to prison, and he's coming back like, all right, it's not good. It's not good to do. Yeah, like okay.
Stop shooting each other over stupid shit. We have bigger problems.
Stop shooting each other over stupid shit. I've seen what true might looks like, and it's actually fucking terrifying. Right? And so and part of that was the notion was that I was going to play him as kind of a stoic. That kind of came to the lower level campaign as well, which was a little tough.
Stoic is tough.
Stoic was tough, especially when you're kind of the primary, the face of the party as a stoic. I felt like for inner party conversations, though, you kind of mentioned before that it kind of worked because you could kind of tell the party to fuck off and figure out yourselves, which I think was fun. And I think I definitely found a happy medium, at least sort of playing him in the moment, which I kind of started to think of him as sort of not quite comic relief, but
not
I started to think of him as a little exasperated with the party.
Yeah.
And that definitely helped. But I often thought a lot about
You did what with all of our money while I was away? Why is it a talking wagon?
I definitely a minor inspiration was Jim from The Office, or maybe more correctly the kind of the notion of the cutaway gang. And so I often thought about, like, Rothgar runs up and says something stupid in character, but stupid to Gregor, or like Olthan and Rothgar argue about something stupid, and I would envision kind of Gregor sort of
cutting away.
Nice.
With
Yeah.
sort of a, pursed lips, kind of just like looking at the camera, like glancing over and looking at the camera, sort of sighing. And that definitely helped. But yeah, the stoic was a fun archetype. I think it was a little. I think Gregor's premise was a little uninformed, and I think that made it difficult in some moments. Like I really, it's weird to call out a moment from the last episode of from the finale as a highlight, but I really liked that little conversation we had at the end. Gregor and Mario.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was good.
Strong grade.
Yeah.
It was
And
a
I
very
think
good
that
ending conversation.
It tied. In some ways, I kind of think that maybe that's a conversation that needed to happen earlier.
Yes, it was like the first time. It was the first time Drago's character had worked in like a while.
Yeah. Also, it just felt like a final conversation. Like you guys were having it. I was like, this is the end of the campaign, like very clearly.
Yeah,
Like,
it felt very much like I could have, after that conversation, played the little piece from The Hobbit and said, "Okay, that's a wrap, guys. Good job."
Yeah. And in the end, I think it worked well. But playing a character that isn't, that in a lot of ways isn't sure and has a lot of doubts, because partially as a player, I'm like, I'm kind of not sure what.
Yeah.
Like Gregor thought he was going to bring a lot, like he was going to bring order, peace, and order to. And this is something like I know William and I joked about a lot early on, was like the notion of like, I thought that Gregor was going to be bringing law and order to a chaotic and savage land, but really Gregor was bringing instability and chaos, like chaos and violence, to a lawful and ordered land.
It was an ongoing joke of the campaign.
And so I think I think in the end, like that conversation, I think kind of it sort of made it all kind of come together. But it was certainly kind of it was tricky to navigate. Not as a like, oh, I think I did a good job navigating something tricky, but I think it was like, I don't know if, kind of. I think that maybe a clearer path for Gregor might have helped me at times kind of really flow with the character, because at times, as a player, I wasn't quite sure what Gregor wanted to do, and that kind of translated to Gregor kind of either going with the flow or not really being sure what to do. And I don't know.
Well, kind of going off on that, you guys mentioned how the orcs weren't as evil as you were expecting them to be. And part of my reasoning for that was that so lately I've been reading through like the 5e monster manual stuff, and there's some like really weird descriptions that just feel like, how does this race function? And goblins were an example where they just have like constant war camps, and it's just like, okay, but how do they get food? How do they like raise children? Like how does that work if they're constantly at war? That doesn't make any sense. There was another one specifically about gnomes, about how they live in little burrows in the forest, and I thought, okay, that's great for like a fox, but how does it work for someone that has like silverware and clothing and a bed when it rains and their burrow gets filled with water?
What, you think they don't have proper French drains?
It literally says they have a bunch of holes to like let the different little burrowing animals that are friends go in and out. To me, it was just like, this does not make any sense. Like in a like, if you actually apply that, so that was somewhat my approach to the orcs, where the orcs that Cimmeria is used to are like all the exiled clanless orcs that have committed crimes and are criminals within the Orclands. The orcs used to be part of the Conclave, which was the 5 different races that were created to conquer Cimmeria by the Olympians. So they used to be one of the good races, but then they got kind of kicked out. And then shattered and broke apart into a bunch of different tribes that don't have as much civilization as the other ones. Like, I never described anything like a city. None of these places have walls, except Castle Thunderhawk, I guess, but that's just for the castle. Like, the town doesn't have a wall. And I think I tried to make them evil, but in ways that were more acceptable for you guys. But like, every single one of these places like has like some sort of relationship with hell or a demon. And I think that also carried over into most of your characters by the end of it.
So for me, it was not the good evil scale; it was the law chaos scale. Right? Like the amount of evil they were felt pretty all right. They were just like so well organized.
Yeah, that was the thing. I think like it seemed like they. I don't know, it seemed like things were going okay. Like, I don't know.
I guess I thought to that point, Isaac. I guess I thought that was that initial thing where you said like, yeah, if they're at war all the time, like how do they raise children? How do they get food? How do things work? I guess I thought that was the case, and that the Orclands were broken, and that Gregor was going in to fix it, because that the Orclands were broken. The Orcs were at war with each other. They were constantly raiding each other. How do they raise children? Well, it's a clusterfuck. And there's orphans and shit running around, children dying of malnourishment. The ones that are raised in a violent system to be violent fucking, raiders. How do they get food? Well, it's a clusterfuck. and that's why they raid each other, because they don't have food. They raid each other because they're fucking trying to find food. No one has food. That the Orclands were going to be. That was kind of my initial thought, right? But I mean, what you're saying makes sense. Like, how can this nation actually function if it's broken? So it shouldn't be broken. It should be a real place.
It felt like a real place, by the way.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We talked a bit about this earlier, but I went a bit too far with the living world and your enemies responding to you and doing their own thing, and it adding too much urgency to some events.
Yeah.
I don't think you did.
That's what I said. It's like a balance. So like, yes, it could have been different. I don't think there was like, it might have been more interesting if we'd had a little break to handle some of that other stuff, but
I really enjoyed. Ultimately, I really enjoyed playing Gregor, and felt pretty honored to be in the captain's seat, so to speak.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was a lot of fun to play in that sort of campaign. Like, it's unusual, like you pointed out a bunch of times, and I thought it was really interesting and went really well.
Yeah, I think you did a very good job of juggling screen time for the other players.
Thank you. Yeah, it was fun exploring kind of a non-traditional kind of power dynamic. Certainly something I think, and try not to, as Jamie kind of said, I think focus on the positive. Not that like there's a negative; it's more like the future kind of stuff. At times I was a little. I think we could have maybe talked a little bit more at the outset about kind
The
of
world, I think. Yeah.
Well, specifically in this instance, talked a little bit about the power dynamic and what that would look like.
That as well. I think it would have.
We've talked about
solved
the
some issues.
Alexander.
I think that. Yes, I think that. I think that if we had all been on the same page, it would have been a little bit better at the start.
I will say that moment, despite all the turmoil and headache, to me, kind of going on cool moments, like that whole sequence, I thought was one of Gregor's like most interesting moments. And after that, I felt a little unsure as a player. And this is something we haven't encountered too many times, but we have in the past. I think something for us to kind of grow as a group on, looking to the future, is how do we want to explore character disagreements and character mistakes, and how we want to explore it. So in a hypothetical future Ulthan centered campaign, right, just as an example, I would want us to have a conversation, I think, beforehand and say, okay, what do we do if Ulthan makes a decision that we're unhappy with? And what do we do if Ulthan makes an egregious decision that we're really unhappy with? Right? Does something that we really don't like as characters, right? What does that look like? And how do we navigate that as players, as characters, and then also how do we build characters that are gonna fundamentally at their core stick with Ulthan through thick or thin, right? That at their core there is basically nothing. There's short of Ulthan trying to murder them. Even then, even if Ulthan tries to kill him, we're playing characters that at their core are going to try to figure out he must be mind controlled. How do we save him, right? Because one of the things with the Alexander stuff that I felt as a player was, an example is sort of John immediately said, "Look, Orc wants to leave," and in some ways, not to throw shade at John while he's not here, but once that becomes kind of a potential option and out for players, for me, it definitely felt like it limited Gregor's ability to take bold action. Because as a player, if I think that something that Gregor does, the campaign is empowering him to take, the structure is empowering him to take bold action. But if, as a player, I go, shit, if Gregor does something bold, we're going to have to, players are going to leave, PCs are going to leave, characters are going to leave, it's going to fucking shuffle the deck. I'm not going to do those things. And I'll admit that after that, I did feel a little constrained as a player in, Gregor got a lot more consensus orientated after that, which on some level works and is some level we're looking for, but, it ultimately didn't feel great, even though I think that scene to me was one of the the most fun.
So I guess I had a slightly different take on it, obviously. I felt like it was fine from a meta perspective to kill off Alexander. My issue was I felt like Gregor wasn't at that point wouldn't like when Grogok went really at him then that would have been that was a totally reasonable understanding of an appropriate response, and that I felt like I wasn't able to do that again the rest of the campaign.
I think because I think we had this conversation, and I think
yes,
with you having valid points. I think the takeaway for the group is if we come to this sort of thing, because I didn't even realize this was a thing, but you guys were both sitting on this and it was stressing you out. We should have this conversation way earlier, like next time.
We kind of did, but it was we did have the conversation, but like tempers were a little high, and
exactly.
I was a little difficult to reach at the time because I was stressed out about some other shit.
I'm not talking because we had a conversation about like I don't know. It needs to come completely out of character, and then we didn't have that conversation, like a completely out of character conversation.
I think we kind of did. Maybe it was. I don't know. I think it was. As I recall, we did a little bit, but I don't.
Maybe it was my impression was we didn't, but that's fair.
I think right in both the before conversation before the game and sooner conversations about things or better conversations about things afterwards both good. I think this is a problem that we've had like for a long time. I feel like we've had different party disputes over multiple campaigns, and they all tend to like blow up pretty badly. And so I think talking about what we do when that happens before the like games even started is a really good idea.
Yeah, I do also think though, like you have an idea of what your character is in your head. Someone else does something, and it doesn't work with what you have in your head. I think the part of the solution is just like, okay, how can I make this character play in this? Like I don't know. It's I have players who are circus members, and they very quickly discover that by the campaign that there's a big bad thing happening, and it's their job as players to sort of like figure out how their person who wanted to just work in a circus is also going to be an adventurer, which is like, yeah, they better fucking do that, otherwise they're not really going to be in the campaign. Although I read on Reddit a lot about people who have issues with that. My party didn't really, but like, it's a lot harder with interpersonal stuff. But at some point, and then so we talking about how to do it, but yeah, we need to figure out how to like basically like shape our characters so that the conflict
finds a resolution.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'll say like Dragic was intentionally built as a character that was going to support Gregor's like lawful ambitions. So then, like,
no. I wasn't sure. No, and I wasn't targeting this at you or Gregor in particular. But like, okay, now that he's killed Alexander, how do we make it so that it continues to function? I think it kind of did, but like, it doesn't sound like you two are super happy with it. But like,
the broader point that we should design characters that want to participate in whatever is happening is definitely correct. And
yeah,
we haven't been doing that.
Yeah, I think we have to. This is more like a second step of like when something happens, adjust the character so that it continues. That continues to be true. Like even if it isn't how you had it before.
Yeah, and I didn't
yeah, well, and and maybe, but like that's not even necessarily like how dare you? It's like also we probably should have had a pause and had a conversation, and we didn't.
Yeah, my point was also like, I think I did a good job here actually. That after that, I tried to have Gregor ultimately kind of grow and try to kind of have him adjust how he operated. But fundamentally, and to not do those things, like Gregor's a character kind of was like, okay, feedback heard. But as a player, I felt nervous about doing anything outside the median, really.
Right, and I felt nervous
because on a meta level, having one of our players, in this case John, say, "Yep, I'm going to quit. My character's out. Fuck this," without really engaging, was tough, right? In that sense, kind of the damage was done, and I certainly agree with what you're all saying about having these pre-conversations, and I think that to some extent, it is about building a character that is going to that like fundamentally they are a character who is going to stick through thick and thin, that can be disappointed in what another character does or be angry with what another character does, but like they're not going to leave, right? Like they would never dream of leaving over that, right? Because and we've seen it a couple times before in other campaigns, and I think it's a tough area to navigate. How do you navigate? Well, my character would do this in response to this negative thing, and it's going to leave. Well, play a different character, right?
Yeah, I remember that when you and I got a fight in the pirate campaign. Forget what about, but and I think you mentioned it when you and I were talking about the Alexander incident at the time. That you were worried about making a decision with your character that would effectively kill someone else's character if they felt like that character then had to leave.
Right. And because I think ultimately, in this case, the fallout was kind of chaotic, but I think one thing I was kind of looking forward to and wished we could have dug into more, especially kind of the later half of the campaign, there was kind of a subplot I kind of saw with Gregor of Gregor becoming slightly you may have noticed he's got a little more megalomania every adventure. He was slightly more.
I liked it. It was a nice slow slide.
Yep.
Early on, he was talking about feeling the call of destiny, and by the end of the campaign, he was,
I am the once and future king.
And the once and fucking future king. And, I wish I could have felt comfortable to lean into that a little bit more, and start to push that a little bit. And I think it would have been cool if we'd had more of a framework for the party to kind of be like,
hey, Gregor, you're kind of slipping, buddy.
Gregor's kind of becoming Gregor's kind of, he's starting to speak German, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I
just think it's an interesting campaign also, though, in that a lot of times in campaigns you have this really convenient role-playing forcing factor of, well, the fucking world's gonna end, so this jerk who I don't like his methods, I kind of have to work with him somewhat. Mostly. And like it's a thing you can lean on should you choose to. And we didn't really have that quite so much here. I mean, we all believed in the cause, and that was why we made these characters. But you can't really substitute, ambition for like the world will end if we don't succeed. Like it just doesn't have that same level of like the role playing assistance is a little less, which is fine. Like that's the story. Not every story has to be world ending, and it's kind of nice that they aren't. But it's worth noting.
Sorry, this campaign didn't have pathological urgency.
No. That was not a complaint.
I know, it was a joke.
But yeah, it's definitely just like notable. Like it's something that's different.
Yeah, I think that's going to be. I mean, it's really true of any campaign or situation where, so much of traditional D&D and early in D&D was almost exclusively, decision by consensus, right?
Yeah.
And any game that introduces the opportunity for, or excludes at times players from decision making, like those decisions are sometimes going to be inconsistent with your character's, goals, interests, beliefs, and thinking about how to manage how your character is going to manage that. If there is a lot, I think it's okay to have lines where it's like, look, like, my character is really uncomfortable with this to the point that they feel like leaving, and even that's something that can be explored. But that line needs to be, to be
highlighted.
Yeah.
Like if Jamie's character starts raping and murdering women, like, we're gonna kick him out of the party.
I think also there's probably like lines where like we don't.
That's more of a player issue than a character issue.
Right? Yeah, exactly. We don't accept. There's topics we don't want to cover in the game, which is
content.
There's hyperbole. My point there is hyperbole.
Yeah. I also think it's maybe helpful. Like we often get caught up in the role play, and we've had a lot of experience with it. But it's sometimes helpful because you could make like, Ulthan does something terrible, and Hrothgar decides Hrothgar's never going to forgive Ulthan for this, and like that's going to be the thing that we're going to explore now. And I think that's probably there's probably a way to, like, if you're gonna make, like, it feels like an antagonistic, like, roleplay decision. I mean, Ulthan in this example deserved it, whatever. But
It's a negative
Abe could
bar.
say, like, I think that's really cool what you did. Rothgar's never gonna forget. like you can clarify, just so the lines are, like, clear and, like, people in real life feel comfortable, or know that you don't feel comfortable. Ulthan's crossed a line, and hey, Jamie, we need to talk about these decisions you're making. They don't make us. They're not cool at our game table, right? Like, you can clarify what side of the line you're on, and maybe we should just have more of those conversations.
Yes, they're quite good conversations.
Yeah. This is a version of Ulthan we haven't explored yet.
We should, but also, like, it's. I think it's important to have the header time. It's easy to say. Time, like, as I recall, like, Trajan and I were, like, kind of mad at each other.
Yeah.
Well, so naturally it's Isaac's fault, right?
Yeah.
How dare you?
Well, that's how we resolve the issue.
Yeah, but like, a lot of the
Speaking of
time, yeah, I guess the point was, like, a lot of
power systems.
yeah. What I was gonna say is a lot of times you have, when you are really mad at each other, that's probably the time to, I don't know, maybe, like, wait a week, and then, like, try to figure out how to like, have discussions until you can, like, make it resolve so that it doesn't just linger. Not the anger, but the in-game frustration.
Yeah, William and I have talked about this a bit on and off. I think a lot of it ultimately is solved by, sort of this conversation that we're discussing and kind of being more on the same page ahead of time.
Yeah, I just feel like we could have been. We, like, to an extent, like, we discussed it too much.
Yeah.
The point of, like, it might have been almost better to, like not discuss this daily last. Like, it.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't. There were confluence of factors, but, like, it didn't really get solved exactly. And, like, if things had, I think that if we had sort of been more on the same page ahead of time, it would have been averted.
Yeah, I think ultimately, though, to put a pin in, or to put a point on one part of this, I think at this point, I think that we can move past this idea of, if you do that, my character is going to leave the party. I think that if it is something that egregious or feels that extreme, it's a timeout meta conversation.
Yeah.
About how we resolve what is clearly a little rip in the narrative fabric. And if it doesn't warrant that, and it's something that your character does feel strongly about, you need to think of a way, you need to think of how they come to the conclusion that they're going to stay with the party. Your character can be mad and storm off. That's fine. But you need to figure out the justification for your character, why they come back a day later and are, grumpy. They tell the other PC to fuck themselves and are grumpy towards them for a couple of sessions, and then
or are secretly, but, like, beneath the surface and won't come up over the course of the narrative, plotting to kill them. But no, maybe not. What was I going to say? I think that's valid. I also think it's valid in that same conversation to be like, this probably pushes me further, like, can, back off a little bit and, talk about the type of actions. Like, the thing that happened, how to make it better. I also think, by the way, this is mostly just for future us, to not hamstring us. It is also valid to have your character leave the party, but be sure to, like, make it clear that you're not doing that because the other person did a thing. It's like, ooh, actually, I've kind of been sick of this character, and this is, like, an inspiring moment. Like, I think that's valid, but it should be like probably.
I think it's also fine to just come to that decision together.
Yeah.
Like, what's going to be more interesting? Like, this character, like, you stepping back on that, or you going forward with that action, and my character, like, staying with the party, or you going forward with that and my character leaving. Which one ends up being more fun for us?
Yeah, basically, if you want to, you can, but not putting it if you want to have your character leave the party, that's pretty much got to be that's like definitionally your own decision. So not
Yeah.
trying to
Just
avoid.
pointing out that like these are all like
Yeah,
different
yeah.
things that we can decide to
And I'm
do, and they're
thinking
all
about
can be fun.
I was thinking about this. I was thinking about in particular Logan from the beginning of Zorian Wars 2, who I very quickly discovered I just did not want. I didn't have any ideas for him. I didn't know what he like. It was just like this. I don't want to be this character. And like I could have, I just sort of had him leave unceremoniously. But like if it comes up and you're in that sort of situation, I think it's pretty valid to say you're leaving. But like also probably clarify in real life, like I'm not doing this because you said this. I was looking for an out. And it seemed like a good one.
Well, there's an example, and I don't mean to call the player out, William. And it was like years ago. We a much better role playing place now and understanding the game. But there was the Amalius moment where Amalius left the party, and William, you had essentially said basically you kind of Torin said it's him or me. I think we've grown a lot from that place, but that's an example that sticks with me where
in my defense, I was actually totally fine with Doran leaving the party at that point.
Well, maybe that's
clear out of character.
Yeah,
but
we
like,
should put out of character. Yeah.
but fundamentally, like
Okay.
that dynamic, that dynamic is something that I think I don't really want us to experience. I've come to realize was pretty sad that Amalius didn't get to continue. I made big plans for Amalius that were not killing the party. I swear, like actually, like he betrayed the party because he got kicked out. My intent was for him to be a foil to Amalgamy. Was originally the original idea with him. But anyway, but I remember at the time feeling like, well, another player is saying it's him or me on a meta level. My character did the action that has created this crisis. It's fair that I guess he leaves, right? That felt shitty.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I
think
we definitely learned a lot from that one.
Yeah, I mean, I also think there was no ability to. I remember like my entire thing was like I was trying to keep Amalius in the party, and there wasn't really a conversation there. But like I guess there was bigger things that I wasn't really know going on.
I tried using my
do
press
wanna say,
32
like,
to insight to convince these.
I do want to say like
Talk out.
I do want to say at the time like I was like I wasn't like I really was like thought there was a decent chance Torin would leave the party. Like I wasn't.
Yeah. No, and then no. That wasn't
didn't
Torin. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Will.
Torin later left the party. That's why I meant it.
Right. And this goes back to I think it's okay to say, like, narratively I'm okay with this, and narratively saying to the party, narratively I think it's on a meta level, narratively I think it's interesting. I'm kind of tired of playing Torin. Narratively I think this would be a good opportunity for him to depart.
Yeah, that's actually a fair point. Of like, we were younger, not as good at communicating, but like, or being like Torin wants to leave from this is totally valid because Colton is getting sick of Torin anyway.
Why? But the point is that's a very different conversation than the much younger and less mature.
We were young, yeah,
Right.
We didn't know.
yeah. But
If Torin leaves, can I get his like magic items?
no, as we all know, when a character dies or leaves, they inconveniently fall in a pool of lava right as they're doing it, and all the magic items are destroyed.
Okay.
Otherwise, the gold wealth by level gets thrown off.
Okay, then I'm not okay with him leaving. I want to kill him so I can get his stuff.
Yeah,
before he leaves.
can we follow
You're
him
gonna
on the
kill him.
road and ambush him?
No, you're gonna kill him, and he's gonna fall in the pool of lava anyway. It just happens. There's always lava. There's no way around the lava.
Lava's always waiting.
Wait,
this is actually
Abe's,
what-
wait, hang on a second. Abe's playing a druid, and they have like a protection from lava spell, right?
It's
I'm out of spell
narrative
slots. I was
lava.
too busy talking.
It's
to you
Hellfire.
earlier.
You forgot to cast it that morning.
Damn. Okay, well, we tried.
No, I mean not actually a thing. Although I do. Well, one of the reasons I do appreciate that 4E has heavy inflation, let's say, so that you don't actually have to worry about things like that. Because it just doesn't matter that much if you get a little bit of extra gold.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Hi, guys.
This is late.
This
It's
was-
11:20. Oh, 10:20 over there. But
Thank you,
still,
Isaac and everybody, for this wonderful,
Isaac,
wonderful
Yeah, thank you,
campaign.
Isaac.
this
You're welcome, guys.
I
Thanks
think
for.
this is my favorite campaign I've ever played in. This is fucking awesome.
Oh shit!
All the other ones are great too. That's not a disparagement of this. I fucking love
Just
Orclands.
the best of the great.
Yeah. Anyway, all right.
Good night.
Bye.
Night, guys. Quick reminder that I'm looking for people to go on the show, so if you or someone you know would be interested, please direct yourself or them to gocorral.com/SDS. That's GOCORRAL.com/SDS. And for staying a little bit extra, you also get to listen to the conversation between Trajan/Gregor and Will/Dragok after the fight with Jormungandr about fate.
So do the elder powers, do the powers above seek to stop me, or is this a test passed in blood that proves me?
Well,
right
it's a test passed in blood, whether or not, regardless of the purpose of it, right? Like the serpent lies. The serpent was a for whatever aim. The serpent was a test, and yet here we have an ex-serpent.
Maybe it is true, and it wasn't this.
We've both traveled far and wide and seen many an omen, many and many a foe. And in my experience, it's best to view every omen as a good omen. It's especially best if everyone else views every omen as a good omen. So, it is my view, and in light of that, it's my view that it was a test, and that you have passed it.
A good omen, and one you believe in. So you believe in me and my right to rule, then?
Yes, I believe that you have passed every test of man and other forces.
And yet it would seem that you might have me rule differently than I have chosen to do.
I'm sure that everyone would rule in a slightly different manner, but ultimately, you wear the crown.
Yes. It is a strange string of fates that have led us here, me here, and me to the crown.
Indeed. But ultimately, my experience is that fates are easier to predict after they've happened.
And if this was a test, as you say, and the trials we have faced were, as you say, tests and omens, deeds of violence and blood, is that what I've been prepared for? Is that what your bones say is my fate as king of the Orclands? A student, disciple, shaped by Tis, shaped and prepared by Tis.
You know, before I joined your cause, there was a different figure I almost allied with. And the bones were comparably favorable to him as you, yet ultimately here you are, and he, I assume, a pauper. So, if there's one thing I've learned from my small leadership position, it's that interpretations of the omens matter far more than the omens.
Do you think then that the signs, the omens, the tests, the trials, blood and violence, that they were not my fate, nor my destiny, but rather those of the Orclands itself?
In
The destiny forecasts a shining throne in the Orclands, but not an orc
not an orc to
to
sit upon it.
there, to sit upon it.
Yes, if it is my belief that this serpent would always, perhaps not today, but perhaps earlier, perhaps in a few years, this serpent would always have come. I don't know if it would always have been slain, and I don't know if you were foretold to slay it, but I think that this serpent would always have been here, and I think that there would always have, at least, and so long as the idea of the throne exists, there will always be those who attempt to sit upon it, even if those that rest, even if it is not foretold who will rest upon it. Yes.
That am I different from the great skin that I wear?
What do you mean? What?
Am I different than the great skin that I wear? Yeah, the skin of the first chief he's alluding to. Am I different than Yinigdrithel, the great sword, hefted onto his shoulder? He's
All those who
nothing
wear...
nothing but a tool to be used.
Well, as we have perhaps has never been more ably demonstrated, even the tool itself can be quite powerful. Gregor says, gesturing to the snake.
Quite powerful indeed.
But to say that there's, I mean, you are no more or less a tool than. Sorry, what was the name of the great chief with a sword hefted upon it?
The great chief. The great chief, yeah.
The great chief, of which we all know.
The great chief, we need not name because we all know it.
He's the great chief.
And yet, we can all recall easily the impact he made upon our land.
Out of mine purpose was to unite as sword and armor of the Orclands. What right do I have to sit upon a throne that was not made for me beyond those things at which I excel? Brutality of might, the violence of blood. It wasn't my destiny. My destiny. My little more than a warlord. Be it exceptionally talented one.
Exceptionally talented and handsome one, yeah. But was not what I would say is to recall the story of the first chief, of which we all know well, and to remember how he was at first a warlord too, and yet he grew to be the greatest leader of the Orclands that we can all recall. Even though, of course, we all know of how he was forced to kill many orcs and in putting down the red herring tribe, of which is now only a distant memory.
Yes. The red herring massacre.
Red herring.
A warning to all young orcs. I am to take.
Yet we remember that in the last 30 years of his reign, there were no more red herring massacres, and I think that is the goal for everyone who sits upon the heavy throne.
You think then that I should take inspiration from the first chief who seized power, who united the Orclands, and in the end defied fate, defied destiny.
I would.
When he marched on Olympus itself.
Yes, I would say that you have gone from being shaped by destiny to now being in a position to shape it, and it is and that it is wise to remember the lessons of the first chief, and to remember that there was only one red herring incident in his reign.
You are full of wisdom, my son. Something the Orclands would much need.
Thank you.
I know now that when I die, I need not frown. Or whatever may come. I'll pat Dragok on the shoulder and bonk him quite hard for the Orcish Rising. Yeah, like a little bit extra from what's usually culturally appropriate.
Right. In Gregor's youth, yeah.